Hello and welcome back, Shark-Keers, to another episode of Deep Dives with Sharks. My name is Alex, I am the host here, and if it is your first time here, welcome aboard, and if you're coming back, I'm very glad to see you again. Last summer, I watched Shark Week and Shark Fest and compared them, which was received rather well by you guys, and opened the door for a variety of different episodes I can do. And we officially have our first movie analysis, which I guess would be the best way to describe this episode. But this week I watched Jaws, one of the most notorious, if not the most notorious shark movie, to discuss the accuracy of sharks represented in the film, and looking at my notes, evidently some critiques of the film style as well. So this episode will not be the typical format of shark information, shark safety, and news. It'll just be the movie and my opinions, which are exactly what they are, simply my opinions after doing research for this podcast and years of loving sharks. There will also be many spoilers, of course, so you've officially been warned. But before going into the episode, I recently got to talk to Mitch, the host of Insects for Fun podcast. I've been listening for a little bit and think it's something you guys might be interested in. He does a lot of research on the bugs he presents and creates a calm atmosphere for listeners. Each episode, he covers a different insect and provides a lot of fun facts, as well as ways you can help them or manage them if they're tearing up your garden. He is much more organized than I am, and his podcast gives me a nice break during my internship or when I'm walking to work. I've got a sound clip here as well, which I'll play in a second, and have a link in the description to check out. Be sure to follow him over on social media as well, and let him know that you're one of the many amazing Shark-Keers. And of course, if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, or want to send any ad sponsors my way, that's available too. But send them over on the DMs over on the social media, on Instagram at Deep Dives with Sharks, or on Twitter at Deep Dive Sharks.
Are you interested in insects and other arthropods? Maybe a bit curious. Insects for Fun is a weekly podcast with short episodes covering fun and unique information from species highlights to broad topics, hosted by me, a master in entomology. For example, did you know that locusts are actually transformed grasshoppers, and that the United States once had a swarm the size of Japan? Or that insects are just further evolved crustaceans? Join me every Tuesday and learn something new on Insects for Fun.
Alright, so before we get into the movie, I do have a little correction corner to get to. Someone pointed out last week that I had forgotten to mention the conservation status of the bramble shark last episode, and looking back into it, there is not currently enough data to give an accurate conservation status, as they are rather hard to find. So some sources do have them listed as endangered, others have them listed as threatened, some have them listed as totally fine and least concern, so kind of just throw a dart at a board, and that'll be our conservation status for right now, and then I'll update you all when we find more information in the future, because ideally more will come out and then we will be able to utilize that. So that is hopefully the plan. But getting into Jaws, it is a 1975 film directed by Steven Spielberg and starring Richard Dreyfuss as Hooper, Robert Shaw as Quint, and Roy Scheider as Chief Brody. Now, this movie helped to put Steven Spielberg on the map, as he had directed smaller movies and television up to that point, and the producers were taking a chance on him when making him the director of Jaws, which today is a rather wild statement with everything that he has achieved. Now, this movie does come with a lot of backlash, as it also is credited with creating the mass fear of sharks that is still present today. We've always been learning more about sharks, but back in 1975 when this came out, they were feared more than loved and could be seen as mindless killing machines. This movie did cause many to hunt and kill sharks, but largely the main threat to sharks has been overfishing and bycatch, according to shark researchers in Florida. Now, despite shark experts letting Spielberg off the hook, pun intended, he still stated he deeply regrets the effect the film had on real-life shark populations at the time. Years ago, I read that he donates heavily to shark conservation, but when looking it up today, I could not find anything, as my Google was flooded with news articles covering the same quote, but not mentioning any donations. So that could have been made up by the internet, but I at least am glad to see that he cares about shark populations. I myself had refused to watch any movies that used a shark as the main villain, simply because I felt that it contributed to hunting and fear of sharks, which some of you have reached out to share the same sentiment. Without movies such as Jaws, conversations are not had, curiosity does not come up, and sharks are left to be finned, hunted, and possibly go extinct. So, without this movie, we would still not know as much as we do today. Now, getting into the movie, there were definitely some odd shooting decisions, as well as scenes that could be a product of the 70s that would come off as very creepy today. But the movie starts with two teens running off from a group bonfire to go swimming in the ocean at night after drinking, which is not a great idea at all. You don't want to swim when you can't see very well, especially if you aren't sober. A while back, I covered a story where the high school graduate jumped into the water in the Caribbean off of the boat and has not been found. So it's not safe and it's not a good idea. Now, the very first attack. Now, from here, I will not be calling them attacks, although they will be classified in anything that you look up as attacks. They are simply bites, although I guess in this movie, since it is kind of a monster that's attacking and not a true shark, it would be one, but anyway, I digress. But they do showcase a good bump and bite for the first attack, quote unquote. The character is first bumped, and then that's when she gets bit. Now, this is where it gets really unrealistic, though, as the shark then decides to drag her about 50 to 60 yards before letting go. Sharks usually bite, realize we taste gross, and then leave. It also proceeds to, bite her for what feels like minutes. It goes on for a while, and typically they don't care that much, so that was really wild. But of course, while that is happening, the guy that she was with just falls asleep on the beach. I did find it odd how calm the next day he and Chief Brody were, as they were not being able to find her and just were having a casual chat, just a nice conversation and stroll. So I thought that was weird. But the most odd part is that they find her body on the sand dunes, which, if it's low tide, assuming, and they're saying that it washed up there during high tide, even during high tide, those dunes would still be probably about 20 to 30 yards from the water, and the shark would have had to absolutely launch her body the same way that I launch my pirate out of a cannon with no regard in Sea of Thieves. But no shark is eating a body that far. That is rather crazy. Now, I'm skipping ahead a bit here because I'm not going to cover every second of the movie. There's just a lot of non-shark related things, like people sitting on a beach or a parade occurring, that I don't think you guys need absolute analysis of. So there's going to be a little bit of jumps here and there, and I'm going to try to keep up the date and let you know which scene we're on. But going to the fact that they're now freaking out because the Boy Scouts are doing a mile swim, it's nuts to me that Boy Scouts either still do or used to do a mile swim for a merit badge, because I used to be a lifeguard at a pool, which I know is not the beach and therefore is not as cool, but I still feel they're very important. I did still save a couple people, so it works out. But the few laps we had to do for the prereqs were exhausting by themselves, so I might just be admitting that kids are stronger than me, but that is still wild. Now, the entire movie has the same overarching theme. That was kind of a side note there, by the way. But the mayor is pretty much looking out for the town funds, which of course you do want to look out for the economy of the town you are leading. That is a very important role. But safety should come first. Closing the beach for a couple hours after a shark attack is fine, but the beaches have been open and this bite happened hours ago. So closing them now is kind of wild. It's most likely gone if it's a normal shark. So people should be alert. You can put some signs out, but they don't need to close the beach for the summer because of a bite. That's kind of nuts. I don't think I've heard of anywhere doing that ever. I could be wrong, but that's kind of nuts. Now, this is where they set up the second bite. So this is where everyone's on the beach and Chief Brody is there with his family. The second bite is set up when the dog goes missing. So it should be noted that sharks will go for dogs sometimes. So it should be noted you should be careful with your four-legged friends around the water, especially if they would like to go swimming, because sharks will nab them if they get the opportunity. Now, when the child gets bit, there is a lot of blood, like almost an insane amount. I feel like that would have been the amount of blood in their entire body, which is possible, and then maybe some more. But I'm not certain. It feels like a little bit too much there for me. Now, I also feel like it would disperse more quickly in the entire ocean there instead of just washing up on the beach. Also, one thing to note, the kid's name is Alex, which feels like a warning, and I feel personally attacked by Steven Spielberg. How could you? It's a whole joke there. Please don't hate me, Steven Spielberg. Anyway, what is more nuts is that in the next scene, there is a $3,000 bounty on a shark. how can you identify which shark bit the kid? You didn't see the species. You didn't see the shark. You just saw the kid go under. People are going to go out there because, especially at that time, $3,000 is a lot of money. And if someone tells me here that if I catch a certain fish and I get $3,000, I'm going to go buy a pole and I myself am going to drive over to the Gulf or the ocean, whichever side they are hunting sharks, fish, whatever. And I'm going to try to catch one myself because $3,000, that could help anyone. So yeah, that's an insane amount of money for a single fish. And it's just going to cause people to go murder fish and sharks for nothing. It's wild. But also in this meeting, this is where they're first announcing that the beaches will be closed. Now, the town is more mad about the beaches being closed than people being bit by sharks, which is rather nuts and pretty unrealistic. People tend to be really cautious, and when someone is told, hey, there's a shark in the water, some people like me are going to be like, oh, I'm going to pop out for a little bit, maybe give it 10, 15, 20 minutes, maybe not even that long, because usually it's just there and gone. But others, they're going to want to go back in immediately and not really care, but for the most part, people are going to hang out on the beach, not run away. It'll be fine. But one thing that happens during this meeting is that when they announce that the beaches will be closed for 24 hours, someone in the meeting yells, 24 hours? That's like 3 weeks. And that was just hilarious to me, because what do you mean? That is a day, bro. Like, what? So that got the movie 5 points in my book, because that was kind of hilarious. But later that night, that's when they go and have Chief Brody start researching different shark bites. And when he's looking at the shark bites in the book, those are all real. It does get gruesome sometimes, and depending on the size of the shark, the bites can be devastating. So all of those are actual pictures. That's not edited. That's not makeup. Those are real shark bite victims, which is crazy. And if you notice, they're all alive. So you can have some pretty gruesome ones and still be okay after. Well, alive after, I'll say. I don't know. Sometimes you lose a limb, but neither here nor there. It's fine. But immediately after, when they are then hunting for the shark and they actually catch the shark or get the shark to take the bait on the dock, the shark rips the dock out to sea. Now, no shark is powerful enough to take any sort of fishing pier or dock out to sea that I know of, at least, unless it's super dilapidated, and it's a really, really powerful shark, I guess. But I feel like you need a lot more help for that. But also, as soon as the guy falls off of that plank and into the water, the shark turns around to come get him. Now, once again, I want to mention this shark, of course, is kind of hyped up as a monster versus an actual great white. So this one, not really realistic. It's not going to suddenly turn around and be like, I'm going to get you. Because also, if it's got a hook in its face, it's going to do everything it can to get it out. It's not going to be like, well, I'm going to go over to this guy and mess him up because he put a hook in my face. That just doesn't happen. But anyway, this is where we're finally introduced to Hooper in the very next scene. Now, for some reason, Chief Brody tells Hooper to tell the guys to get off the boat when it's overloaded. And he yells at them. They say, nah, whatever, and go to take off. He goes, oh, they're all going to die, which also made me laugh. So I was like, another 5 points. But also, why was that his job? My guy is a shark expert, not the deputy. So why? Like, also, he's just some random guy that walked up, and Chief Brody's like, hey, get them off the boat. If I'm there, I'm going to be like, hey, guys, Chief said get off the boat. And they're going to look at me and say no, and I'll be like, yep, I did what I did. Like, I tried my best. There's nothing else I can do there. That's a weird command to give, in my opinion. But once again, that's my opinion. Now, when Brody then goes to Hooper goes to look at the body of the first victim, there is an international shark attack file that would want to document bites. So looking at the body and examining what is going on with it and the damage and injuries sustained would be rather accurate, but it would most likely be performed by a mortician or a doctor. Wouldn't just be a shark expert that's out there doing it. Shark experts could look at some of the stuff after to get like bite size and things like that, but I don't think they'd be out there giving a full medical analysis, which I need to clarify that as well. But that one, I felt that was kind of odd too. Now, right after this, that's when they announced that they have caught a tiger shark. And Hooper is correct in saying that many sharks make different bites. It's often how they can tell which type of shark did bite after if they did not see the shark and all they have are the injuries that were sustained. They can usually tell which shark did it based on the bite pattern. But the odds to catch the correct shark right there are actually larger than 100 to 1, because 100 to 1, you have decent odds. You're probably much closer to 1,000,000 to 1 at that point because of how far sharks will migrate even throughout the day. So catching a great white that bit someone hours, maybe days ago, the odds just get higher and higher. You have to be right there to catch it. And first of all, why would you want to catch it? It's a shark. You want to help the person. So it wouldn't really make sense. The odds would be much larger to 100 to 1. So going after a shark because it bit someone just does not make sense. Hence, the whole premise of this movie is weird. But we know that today. Back then, it made a lot more sense. Now, as they're examining the shark and they're all arguing, they for some reason bring out the grieving mother to yell at Chief Brody. And as someone who is in school to be a social worker, I don't understand why you would parade the mother of the deceased child to the dock to tell off the police chief. That should be a private discussion. She's emotional. You need to let her calm down. She's rightly emotional because she just lost her child. And she's grieving. So one of them is bargaining and blaming and anger and everything like that. So of course she's going to be blaming people. And why would you bring her out in front of everyone to do that? That is just a weird thing to do. That's manipulative. That's dumb. So in the mental health field, we would not do that. Just saying. But I do understand why they did it in the movie. It's to create that sort of guilt that Brody feels and the fact that he feels he needs to catch the shark to make it up to the people around him, even though it's clearly not his fault. He's been trying to fight for the people. The mayor's the one that's not, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. But that was just a really weird scene for my social work brain there. But after that, Hooper comes out of the house he comes to the house. Sorry, I misread my note there. But when Hooper comes over to Chief Brody's house that night, brings over wine, they're having dinner. He also eats Chief Brody's dinner, which is a really weird decision too, but whatever, make yourself at home. But when he discusses that at one point what made him love sharks was that a thresher shark tore his boat apart. Orcas are the ones that are currently attacking yachts today. Sharks might bite your boat to try to figure out what it is, but they would not be able to tear your boat apart unless you're on an inflatable dinghy or a raft or something like that. They'll poke a hole in that. They wouldn't even really tear it apart as much either. They might bite and thrash and then it gets torn apart, but your regular pontoon boat, something like that, it's not going to get torn to shreds by a shark. If anyone's ever had that happen, please reach out to me. I do actually want to hear about that because that just sounds so far-fetched and weird to me. So anyway, but that night they also decide that they're going to go dissect the tiger shark to prove that the child is not there. When they open the tiger shark's stomach, they do find random cans and license plates and all that. You would find that in a tiger shark's stomach. They have found things like those in tiger shark's stomach. They've also found human remains inside of tiger sharks before. Now, these were up in New York, if I remember correctly, and it was someone that had been killed prior to being fed to a shark, and then they were just disposed of in the water and the shark ate them. But they were actually able to solve a murder because of it. So sharks have helped to solve crimes before in the past. So good job, guys. Proud of you. But after this is when they kind of proved that the tiger shark they caught and killed was not the culprit. So they are out in front of a billboard that the mayor's mad about because of vandalism, and they're talking to the mayor about what attracts sharks, and they pretty much nailed it. Sharks are attracted to splashing and slapping at the surface, as it does mimic what an injured fish would do, and injured fish, of course, are seen as an easy meal. Now, they are incorrect, though, that the shark would love eating people. Sharks, when they taste us, usually realize we don't taste very good, and then they just spit us back out. They don't really want to eat us. We're not their main meal. They wouldn't eat us even in a pinch. We're just not food to them. So they might come in a little closer to try to get fish and things like that, but they usually, if there's so many people in the water as well, they're not going to hang out. They're going to get spooked and run away. But anyway, the next scene jumps us back onto the beach. And the one thing I'm so annoyed about, this is probably my biggest gripe of the entire movie, is that there are the beach is packed. There are so many people there. And the whole point is that the mayor is upset because he wants people to be in the water having a good time when he's worried about the tourism dollars and things like that. People are tanning on the beach having a good old time. They do not need to be in the water for you to still make the money. They still have it, but he still goes up to the one guy and he's like, "Oh, y'all having a good time? Yo, bozo, get in the water." it doesn't make him any more money. Like, I guess the only thing it doesn't make you money on is buying like beach towels, but people are still going to go to restaurants. They're still going to buy stuff. You're still going to get that that influx of money. That's the word I was looking for. My goodness. So I just don't understand that scene because I'm not a business person, but I feel like when you have people there, they spend money. That's just my thought. Plus, they're going to need sunscreen. You're selling sunscreen. It works. But in the same scene, the shark is spotted, but it's kids messing around. So this is why you don't want to cause a panic, because they all start yelling shark, and then everyone stampedes out of the water, which leads to more chaos. So if you do ever see a shark out in the wild, be calm. Like, you can alert the people around you just by calmly being like, oh, hey, by the way, like, there might be a shark out there. It's just like, keep a heads up. And you don't got to force them to stay in the water or get out the water. If you want to get out the water, you can get out the water. If they want to get out the water, they can get out the water. I'd probably go let the lifeguard know just as a heads up, like, hey, I'm pretty sure I saw a shark out there, like, just so it's on your radar. I'm not going to tell them anything because I could have been wrong. It could have just been a dolphin I saw at a distance and got wrong, like two of them next to each other, something like that. So you don't want to cause a panic because we don't need a mass stampede of people sprinting out of the water. It's not going to help. It's going to cause more chaos, could hurt someone. It's just not really that big of a deal to see one. Now, of course, if someone gets bit, that causes for a little bit more panic, I guess. But that one, you want to try to help them. But I've talked about that in previous episodes. Y'all can check those out if you want to, or if you have more questions on how to help someone, feel free to reach out to me. I am happy to share what I know on that. Now, this gets us to the third bite, which I'm pretty sure is a third bite. I was kind of losing my train of thought a little bit while watching at this point, so I think I didn't miss a bite in between. But this is where, like, there might be more than three. I'm not sure. Anyway, the shark, when it comes out of the, like, pond, or I think they call it a pond. It's like a little, like, bay type deal. But when it comes in the inlet there and jumps out, it is massive, like way too big to be a great white. Like, it would not be able to swallow a boat whole. That is just not going to happen. Like, that thing was megalodon sizes at this point. Like, we're not in great white territory anymore. That is huge. But from there is, it's just way too big. I don't like it. But they have a meeting after the third bite. This is where they agree to hire Quint to hunt the shark. Now, that's an odd concept as well, because you're once again trying to find a needle in a haystack. It's not impossible, but you're going to kill a lot of sharks in the process, and they were just existing, so it's not a good idea. Also, the mayor gets mad at this point because Brody is really pushing out there to, like, we got to go after the shark, which also, once again, dumb. But the mayor at which point looks at him and goes, my kids were on that beach. Yeah, so are everyone else's, dude. Like, why is this all about you? God, I do not like the mayor. He is, oh, God, he irritates me. Anyway, this is an anti-mayor person from Jaws podcast at this point. That guy said he should not get reelected. Anyway, I have so many thoughts on him. But when they get along with Quint finally and they get on his boat, it's named the Orca, if I remember correctly, and which is rather accurate. Orcas have hunted and killed many sharks, but as they are getting it together, Hooper brings a shark cage and Quint kind of roasts him for it. Shark cages are cool, man. We do like them. They're rather neat. I would like to go into a shark cage one day. I'd also like to free dive with sharks. I need to learn how to dive first, but it's on the list of things I want to do. So it's one of those things that I just thought was kind of dumb, because it's like, oh, hey, like, you're going to get in a cage, you little weakling. Like, what in the world? No, like, that's not a bad safety measure to have. Why are we making fun of safety measures when this thing is just goofing everyone up? Like, what in the world? But anywho, when they get out on the boat and they encounter the shark for the first time, that's when he has his reel set up, rod and reel going, and it starts clicking as they're fishing for the shark. And I just think it's funny that many fisher people, myself included, will move real slow when, like, we're grabbing the rod, which, like, I know is not to jerk it all around, but every time, like, even when I'm not even close to the rod, I kind of start, like, sneaking up on the rod as if, like, the fish is going to hear me coming from the land. And I catch myself doing that, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, grab the rod, you're fine. So, like, it's stuff like that, but it just made me laugh there. I was like, we all do it, and I don't know why we do that, but maybe someone knows better. Anyway, going to the we're gonna need a bigger boat line, that scene. You do have to be very careful when chumming the water, as sharks may be nearby and can be stirred up by the chum, so being too close to the water when chumming can be very dangerous. That being said, they gave the thing, I can't think of the right word, but essentially the parameters, I guess, of the shark, we'll go with that, that is 25 feet and 3 tons. So typically great whites, they weigh about 2,500 pounds, which is a ton and a little bit, like about a ton and a quarter. So this shark would weigh over 6,000 pounds. I didn't look into what the largest great white ever was, but we've reached, I believe, unrealistic weight there. Now, great whites, I do believe, can get up to 24 feet, so some probably do go past that. I believe Big Blue was around 25, so yeah, some great whites can be as big as 25 feet, so that part's not insane, but the shark they portrayed earlier in the third bite, well over 25 feet. That thing ate a whole boat. That's not happening. I will say that there's one scene that I thought was very odd, and that was when they were comparing scars. I'll say they did name a lot of different sharks. None of them would produce some of the scars that they were talking about and some of the events. So I'm just going to kind of skip over that, as I thought it was odd. But it also kind of showed the military experience that Quint had before. So thank you for your service, Quint. But also, please learn more about sharks next time. But then when the shark shows up again, while they were singing, which is just rude for them to interrupt, but it also does so much damage, like, which shouldn't be possible. The boat catches on fire. Did the shark have Molotov cocktails? What was going on there? There's no reason a shark should make your boat catch on fire and really at all. No, like I was going to say, like if you got a boat big enough to have like a little mini kitchen and there's like some sort of stove on there to warm stuff up, like maybe it'll knock something over and that can start a fire. But that's more like the waves are going to do that. The shark itself is not going to be able to ram your boat. An orca would do that. Maybe. I need to look more into orcas too. But it's not going to, like, a shark itself is not just going to be like, and I hit you and your boat's on fire. Hooray. Like, that's so wild to me. That does not make sense. Now, sharks are also very powerful. And then in the same scene, it starts dragging the boat, which is incredibly powerful and be well over 25 feet. 3 tons of power might be able to pull that, but it's still very unrealistic that a 25-foot shark could drag a boat that looks like it's about 30 feet or more with all the stuff that's on it. There's just no way. It's unrealistic there. I gotta say, for the sharks that they talk about, for the most part, a lot of the stuff they say is very accurate unless it comes to this shark. This shark is just not a shark. It is some sort of mutant. But anyway, if I knew a shark was over 25 feet and 3 tons and had an absolute hungering for people, I'm not getting in the cage. I don't know why Hooper decides to get into the cage at this point. He's like, I'm going to get down there and get it. Like, you're not the shark hunter. You're the researcher. What are you going to do here? I do like that he did have the cork on the tip, though. That is very smart. Many people will unintentionally poke themselves with, like, the tags and stuff getting in because, like, they don't have, like, the little safety thing on the tip of the spears or whatever. So bonus points there for that. That's not a horrible idea, in my opinion. But anyway, sharks do often bump cages to figure out what they are, but there's no reason that the shark would be like, you know what? I hate this cage. I'm going to get rid of it. And would just keep coming back to destroy it, even after it's been stabbed. Now, I'm a big advocate. Don't punch or stab sharks, anything like that. There's really no need to do it unless it is being real territorial and persistent. Your safety does come first. I'm not going to tell you ever to die just for a shark. So don't do that. But my whole point here is that it got stabbed. It'd be buggering off at this point. There's no reason it's going to come back just to mess with you. They don't enjoy conflict. It's not worth it. It wouldn't keep going for that. They also don't often end up on boats. But when they do, it's usually because they're hooked and trying to get free. So I think the last video I saw was from a Mako last summer. Someone hooked one, I believe, off the coast of Florida. It tried to jump out the water to be free of the hook and then landed in the boat. And they were all very startled about that because you're not ready for that. No one's ready for that. But yeah, that is a possibility. It's not just going to flop on the deck to come and get you. But yeah, that was unrealistic. Also, it wouldn't be like, I know this guy's been hunting me, so I'm going to target him, and then it goes for Quint that way. So, I mean, once again, a very weird weird choice there, but it happens. Also, big ending of the movie here. So they get the canister in the shark's mouth, which once again, great whites don't really go for anything that's more of a tiger shark move. So they kind of combine like 5 sharks into one for this shark. But when it's just kind of like gnawing on the canister, he shoots it with this smile, you son of a, and then shoots it. And it explodes, which is really cool. Great shot both by Brody and also by the directors there. That was a really good scene to do. Really big, exciting ending. But Mythbusters did test this, and you can't use a canister of compressed air to blow up a shark. Sorry, but yeah, that just they disproved that years and years ago. So in case anyone was wondering, you can't. Also, a good episode of Mythbusters. Do recommend watching that. But from there, just to fill out the ending, that's when Hooper comes back up, shows he's alive, and then he and Brody just kind of start kicking back. God knows how far they are out in the ocean, so it's going to be a long swim. But, they made it a second Jaws, and I have not watched that, so I have no idea. But, Hooper, I think, is in the others, so they make it, which is good. But overall, I found the movie very entertaining, as it does show a lot of real dangers that sharks possess. But it did create a lot of fear and lead to more shark deaths than anticipated. It also helped to get Spielberg on the map and gave us greats such as E.T., Jurassic Park, and one of my personal favorites, Back to the Future. So would I give up a couple sharks to get Back to the Future? I don't know. Maybe. But also at the same time, no. So I'm on the fence. But I will say, I wish they could have gotten a different message out there than what they did. But I also feel that it helped to get discussions going about sharks, as many who previously did not know much about them now wanted to know more. Would they be able to do what they did in this movie? I guarantee that this episode might get to a couple people who haven't heard of this podcast and have probably listened to other podcasts about Jaws, trying to figure out more about sharks and if they can do those things. So it sparked curiosity in millions, which then caused them to talk about it, getting others involved. So it did a lot of good, but also a lot of harm. So I'd say it was a good job. I'm not going to give it a rating. That's not my place. It's going to be a biased rating anyway. I did like the movie. I probably will watch more, A, for the podcast here, and B, because I did think it was rather interesting to see. So I think it's neat. But that's what I had for this episode here. Thank you all for listening once again. Follow along on Instagram for more updates at Deep Dives with Sharks, on Twitter at Deep Dive Sharks. I'm really bad about updating the Twitter. I'm really sorry. It's also called X now, I think, so whatever. But I also run polls, stuff throughout the week to see what you guys would like to hear. You can send in any comments, questions, anything like that. Remember to check out Insects for Fun. In the earlier episodes, it was called Insects for Dummies, but still very, very good. But also, I think all bugs, insects, isopods, and arachnids included are incredibly cool. And if you guys like quick bits of info, you'll like it. Like you get here, you'll love his podcast as well. I'm stumbling over my words at this point, but lastly, give this episode a rating on Apple or Spotify and the podcast as a whole. Share it with anyone you think would like to listen. I'm not exactly sure when I'll be back because, surprise, I got an extra class as well. So yay, my time is not as free as I thought, but I'm gonna try to keep this going. But I will see you guys in the next one. Please take care of yourselves and take care in general.